Pro Group Management, workers' comp that works for you.
Welcome to Nevada Newsmakers. This is Orrin Johnson filling in for Sam Shad. In today's all-new program, we have Jason Guinasso, who's the managing partner of the law firm of Hutchison and Steffen. He's also an associate pastor with Ministerio Palabra de Vida. When we come back.
Liberal D.C. spending is making life in Nevada painfully expensive.
It's a killer, it really is. Groceries, everything.
I have no choice, I gotta get gas one way or another.
Not only gas prices, everything is going up.
Senator Catherine Cortez Masto joined fellow D.C. liberals voting for trillions in government spending, causing inflation and higher costs, making it harder for Nevadans to get by. Tell Senator Cortez Masto to stop voting for reckless spending and start fighting inflation.
Hello, is this D&D Roofing?
Yes, it is. How may I help you?
You did such a great job on my roof. May I speak to the owner?
I am an owner.
Oh, can I speak to your supervisor?
Sure.
How may I help you?
I love your work. May I speak to the owner?
I am an owner. We're all owners. Well, that's why at D&D we work so hard to keep your home safe and sound.
Oh, no wonder.
D&D Roofing and Sheet Metal. Local, employee-owned, here for you.
Retail's impact on Nevada's economy? Enormous. 8,600 businesses, large and small, employing 145,000 workers. And last fiscal year, retail paid tax on nearly $60 billion in sales. We're the Retail Association of Nevada. We support retail, we help it grow, and we mean business.
RANNV.org.
Take a look at Pro Group Management and see how your workers' comp requirements can be met head-on. By taking a proactive approach, Pro Group can assure that your company is meeting or exceeding state and federal standards. As you move forward in your industry, Pro Group moves with you, simplifying regulatory tasks, clearing the way so you can get the job done and look to your future success. Pro Group Management, workers' comp that works for you.
This is Nevada Newsmakers with host Sam Shad, a no-holds-barred political forum. Now, from the Nevada Newsmakers broadcast headquarters, here is Sam Shad.
And welcome back to Nevada Newsmakers. This is Orrin Johnson filling in for Sam Shad. With me today is Jason Guinasso, who's the managing partner with the law firm of Hutchison and Steffen. He's also an associate pastor at Ministerio Palabra de Vida. Jason, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you, Orrin. Nice to be here.
So, I don't know, it was a couple weeks ago, you penned an op-ed for the Nevada Independent that talked about some frustrations you had about what you called the Trump effect, and how that's impacting some local politics and Republican politics. So, first of all, I guess just kind of for people who don't know, you're a Republican, you've run for office as a Republican, that this is the point of view you're coming from, is that fair to say?
Oh yeah, absolutely. When I first registered to vote, when I was 18, about 32 years ago, I'm pushing 50 now. I registered as a Republican. It was a time when Ronald Reagan was concluding his presidency, and George Bush was coming into his. And I was a young Republican through high school, young Republican through college, and worked on the Kenny Gwynn for Governor campaign and a bunch of campaigns through college, and then ran for office myself a couple years back, and so been a part of the party and a part of the conversation for quite a while.
So obviously a lot of people who have been part of the party for a long time, when Trump kind of came on board and there's this kind of new energy for good or ill, and in your op-ed you clearly indicate you think it's for ill. So why do you think that that Trump's candidacy and presidency was a net harm to the GOP?
Well, there were a couple of issues, both when he was a candidate and then as he became president, that became clear. One was the rhetoric that he chose, and I know people discount rhetoric, but at a national level particularly, but even in local politics, the words we choose to articulate our policy positions are as important as the policy positions we pick, because words have consequences. Rhetoric has consequences, and so the rhetoric he adopted was a rhetoric I think was foreign to kind of the national stage, and it would only be adopted by the most fringe candidates, in politics. I remember there was a guy named Orrin a long time ago who kind of had that look and feel and adopted that rhetoric. So that was one issue, and then the other issue was really the issue of character. Is this the character that we want to have as our standard bearer? Knowing that, we as Republicans were highly critical of people like Bill Clinton when his character fell below our expectations of what a good national leader should be.
So let me ask you about that, though. So can you deny that purely as a matter of policy, objectively, the Trump administration, policy-wise, especially for longtime Republicans, was successful?
Oh, policy-wise, there's no debating that. I mean, when I think most Republicans like me care most about having conservative judges be appointed,
right?
And he was faithful to that. I think a lot of us cared about having kind of fiscally responsible government. I think he was faithful to that.
And in fact, more faithful, more successful than any other Republican, certainly in my lifetime, in any kind of meaningful way, in terms of actually reducing the size and scope of government or regulations as opposed to slowing the growth.
Yeah, I think so. Although I think that that and issues of life and other issues that we care about as Republicans, I think the success he had was probably unprecedented for a Republican. But I think there's an axiom in politics that mirrors physics, and that is every action has an equal but opposite reaction, Uh-huh. And so understanding that in our political system, it's a conservative system meant to invoke change incrementally, and change that will, and if you embrace the process, understanding that you want to make incremental change, the changes that you implement will have longer lasting impacts than if you come in, you're a disruptor, you kind of turn the world upside down. Eventually, gravity will set in, and a lot of those changes will be undone because you didn't build what Mr. Trump was not effective at was building coalitions, bipartisan coalitions that could get around policy proposals and then and see them through. So,
except that, Trump got more votes than any Republican presidential candidate in 2020 ever got. He had a higher percentage of minority votes than any Republican president has gotten in my lifetime. Mm-hmm. He has. I understand the argument, and I used to share that argument about this kind of incremental change and building long-term foundations. Yeah. But after 40 some odd years, that never materialized until Trump came along as a disruptor. At some point, how long do we keep kind of not seeing any change before somebody comes along who actually does it? We say, well, we're going to tolerate some mean tweets.
Yeah, I don't think it's just mean tweets. I think there's a rhetoric, there's a character, and the question becomes, do the ends justify the means? And I think especially for evangelical Republican voters where faith is a central part of their worldview and their political.
And you're among that class of voters.
Yeah, among that class of voters. Our faith is a big part of how we view the world, how we engage in politics. I think it's it's a question I think we struggle with because character matters, words matter, and the question that we wrestle with is, do the ends justify the means?
All right. And we'll wrestle with that question when we come back.
Liberal D.C. spending is making life in Nevada painfully expensive.
It's a killer. It really is. Groceries, everything.
I have no choice. I gotta get gas one way or another.
Not only gas prices, everything is going up.
Senator Catherine Cortez Masto joined fellow D.C. liberals voting for trillions in government spending, causing inflation and higher costs, making it harder for Nevadans to get by. Tell Senator Cortez Masto to stop voting for reckless spending and start fighting inflation.
The Do It Right guys at Nevada Heating have one mission. Your air conditioner breaks down today. We fix it today. Why sweat for days while your air is down when Nevada Heating can get the job done today and you can get cool again? For For nearly 50 years, locally owned Nevada Heating has been getting the job done right. Call today at 323-5585 or see us online at nevadaheating.com.
Southwest Specialties has been making the homes and businesses of Nevada beautiful for more than 20 years. Their experienced designers and craftsmen create the walkways, backyards, water features, and a variety of outdoor cooking areas that add curb appeal and value to your investment. Call today or visit them at their website and see how they can make your outdoor spaces special. Southwest Specialties, creative, distinctive, beautiful.
The Nevada Builders Alliance has been protecting the interests of the construction industry for over 50 years.
Our programs save members thousands of dollars every year and allow them to provide much-needed benefits to their employees. Our industry also allows Nevada to grow. If you're thinking about a career in the construction industry, reach out. And if you haven't thought of a career in construction, what are you waiting for? We are the Nevada Builders Alliance.
This is Nevada Newsmakers.
And welcome back to Nevada Newsmakers. This is Orrin Johnson filling in for Sam Shad. With me today again is Jason Guinasso, who's the managing partner of the law firm of Hutchison and Steffen. He's also an associate pastor with Ministerio Palabra de Vida. And we're talking about the future and character of the Republican Party, which is a topic that's going to take a lot more than one show, but I'm really glad you're here. So in the last segment we talked about Donald Trump, but I want to bring it a little bit more local. You wrote in your op-ed for the Nevada Independent, you were highly critical of a couple of recent Republican candidates, Joey Gilbert, who lost for governor, although he came in second, and Sigal Chattah, who's now the Republican candidate for Attorney General. So tell us just briefly, what's kind of the general thrust or criticism of those two folks as Republican standard bearers?
Yeah, I think similar to Mr. Trump, the rhetoric, and it's not just the tone of the rhetoric, but it's the substance too. I mean, it doesn't seem like facts matter to candidates. If you can say something with enough motion and with conviction, it doesn't matter if what you're saying is actually true and correct.
So specify that. What besides, and we all know the election, whether or not the election in 2020 is stolen, that sort of thing. Yeah. Other than that, because that's the one thing that gets brought up. Other than that, what are some of your other concerns about the rhetoric?
Well, you need to be truthful voters, and I think that with regard to their record on what they've done as lawyers to serve people, I can only speak to what I know personally, and they took a lot of credit for the cases involving the churches and opposing the governor's regulations that shut down or substantially reduce the gatherings that churches could have. And I know, because I was intimately involved with those cases, that their role was not as large as they claimed, stump speech after stump speech, website after website. And so, if they're, and I think the motivation of bringing those alleged accomplishments to the fore was to develop some credibility amongst a base, to manipulate people into voting for them, and that's part of our political process is
that's politics, and that's never going to change.
No,
right? There's always some of that.
But I wish that we would be more circumspect about how we manipulate, because political leaders, particularly, manipulating emotion, for their own personal gain, while it may result in some immediate gain, I think the long-term consequences are devastating. But in this instance, I was really critical of the fact that they were taking credit for successes in cases that they really didn't merit.
And that's fair. Yeah. Isn't it fair to say, though, that any successful team has different components of the team? You don't have a whole football team full of quarterbacks. It wouldn't work. You need different people with different abilities and kind of different skill sets. Was their PR kind of portion of it? And I agree with you. Obviously, there was lots of hat and maybe not so much cattle with respect to what they did. But isn't the PR portion of it and making the arguments and being public and being even confrontational, did that not add value to the overall effort to change some of those emergency regulations?
I think it actually detracted from the effort. It undermined the the message, at least from the church perspective. Now listen, I'm an attorney, I'm a pastor, so the regulations affected my life more than maybe others, and understanding the kind of message we as a church wanted to get out, where we were concerned about the health and safety of our community and wanted to make sure that we were doing our part to preserve the health and safety of our congregants and the community at large. But at the same time, we wanted to communicate to the governor that we were partners in the process, not adversaries. And time again, the governor treated us like an adversary. And so when I jumped in, I wrote an op-ed to the Nevada Indy explaining our position. I coordinated with churches from one end of the state to the other. We had probably a coalition of about 200 churches that signed 2 different letters explaining our message and what we thought was important. And then when that was ignored, then we got together 100 churches on a Zoom call, talked through the issues from a legal perspective. I brought in the Alliance Defending Freedom and some attorneys that specialized in this area of law. And we were really deliberate about, the church that we represented, making sure it was a church that was complying with the regulations.
But let me ask you about that. I actually disagree with you tactically on that. If I were you, and I remember watching that and following it at the time, the governor never had the authority to shut down your churches in the first place, ever. The abuse of the emergency powers is manifestly not in accordance with any constitutional scheme. Why didn't you just keep going to church? Dare him to arrest you for doing something that you had every right to do?
Yeah, I think there are rights and there are responsibilities, and there's, at least for Christians, I think we have to weigh our right to do something with our responsibility to lead well and to if we're going to engage in civil disobedience, and you'll see this in a string of emails I sent to the churches. If you're going to engage in civil disobedience, it has to be as a last resort, not as a first resort. And so there were steps in my thought process as I was leading other churches to get to an end, and those steps included engaging the governor directly when the governor ignored us, then going to the court of law, trying to get relief from the court of law, and then at one point, when the court rejected our arguments and were on appeal, a lot of churches at that point took it upon themselves to engage in civil disobedience, and I don't blame them for that. But as far as our leadership and our messaging, we wanted to make sure that we were not in a time of great stress for the community, not to encourage and inflame the passions and emotions, but to utilize our constitutional process to reach a result, which ultimately it took us 6 months till around December to get to that result, but we ultimately did get to that result.
All right, and one more quick question with respect to this. Obviously, Ms. Chadha, who you opposed before the primary, now that she's won, objectively, she's going to be better for your churches and for your policy preferences than Orrin Ford by orders of magnitude. Are you going to support her in the general election?
I don't know that for sure. I'm going to have to look at her record, because her messaging, if she were to follow through on her messaging, I don't know that she would be measurably better than Mr. Ford. She may be worse in some regards. I mean, her background doesn't seem to, it doesn't give me the confidence that she'd be a stellar Attorney General. So I'm going to have to give that some thought.
All right, fair enough. And when we come back, we'll talk about some other lawfare that Mr. Guinasso is involved in involving school choice.
I'm here at the Carson Valley Inn in Minden with Joey Whitaker, and you've got a lot of convention space and meeting breakout space for people. Tell us about what's available.
Well, we can handle a group up to about 250, and anywhere as small as 10 or 15. So it really depends on what you're looking for, what the customer's looking for. We're open to anything. It's a beautiful drive, and if you live in South Reno, it's probably about 30-35 minutes, so it's real easy to get to. It's not a long way to get away to the Carson Valley Inn.
Pro Group Management is the place where companies can find workers' comp solutions that are designed to meet their specific business requirements. As regulations evolve, Pro Group takes a proactive approach to clear the path to make sure your business stays ahead of the curve. Knowing your workers' comp program is optimized, you can focus on other important matters related to your growing business. Pro Group Management, workers' comp that works for you.
Truck drivers are some of the hardest working people you'll meet. delivering over 70% of America's freight and 92% of Nevada's. When there's a natural disaster, they're delivering critical supplies to help those communities recover and rebuild. Every sector of the economy and our nation's military rely on truck drivers. So let's take a moment to say thank you. On the open road or city streets, our truck drivers are rolling to make our economy and our nation stronger. Trucking moves America forward.
As you know, Reno is booming. Toll's development company is helping it grow with insightful design and development, building community with every project, adding beauty, adding excitement, emphasizing our shared humanity. Reno is becoming bigger. Toll's development is helping it become better, more livable, more enjoyable. To learn more, go to tollsdevelopment.com. tollsdevelopment.com.
This is Nevada Newsmakers.
And welcome back to Nevada Newsmakers. This is Orrin Johnson filling in for Sam Shad. And again with me is Jason Guinasso, who's a managing partner with the law firm of Hutchison and Steffen. So, Jason, the phrase I used right as we outroed the last segment is lawfare, which is something that I think progressive and Democratic Party aligned groups have been engaged in for decades, which is filing lawsuits to effectuate policy changes. One of the things I've always really admired about you is that you're one of the few people in kind of more conservative bent who's engaged in that sort of thing. One of those things is that you're involved in a lawsuit over a school choice ballot initiative. Can you tell us about that a little bit?
Yeah, so the Education Freedom PAC put together an initiative petition that essentially enacts education savings accounts and enshrines that in the Constitution. And so the premise behind education savings accounts is to empower parents, regardless of their financial means, to be able to have money set aside for them to choose which education option amongst the options that we have available in Nevada is right for their student, and to allow that funding to follow the student to their choice. And so we're in an early part of the initiative petition stage where a proposed change to the Constitution was drafted, and we have to do two things. One, we have to make sure it only addresses one subject. We did that. And the second thing we had to do is make sure that the 200-word description of effect was succinct, straightforward, and was non-argumentative.
And that's the subject of a lawsuit right now. That's the excuse to try to prevent you from getting school choice on the ballot.
It's exactly right, exactly right. So that's what we've been dealing with. And the district court judge did not apply that standard and really got into the weeds of the policy, which was inappropriate under our case law to get into the weeds of the policy at this stage. Really, we're just looking to make sure that the petition that we give to voters doesn't mislead them. And the petition that we crafted, it's been our position, it doesn't mislead the voters at all.
What's the claim of what are they claiming you're misleading the voters about?
Well, they were in the 200-word segment. They were saying, well, you didn't really. We had some numbers with regard to the base amount of per pupil funding that would go toward education savings accounts, and they said, well, that's misleading because it's the minimum amount. It doesn't tell them what the maximum amount of per pupil funding that could go to this. And they took 8 pages to describe the funding formula, and my retort to them was, we only have 200 words to describe to a voter the impact of what it is we're trying to propose, and it took you 8 pages to describe, the entire funding formula. So what we put in was a minimum amount, and that's what you really want to let voters know, is what is the minimum impact that this could have for your family in terms of why we are bringing this to the public for a discussion and possible vote.
So doesn't that speak a little bit to the problem that we have in trying to amend our Constitution via the initiative process? I'm a big fan of school choice. I agree with you, I think, probably on a lot of those policies. But I'm always concerned when the complexities of those policies, which should be known, are not able to be effectively communicated. Do you have that concern as well?
I would if this was the only opportunity, but the description of effect is simply to be used to gather signatures. Once my clients have been successful in gathering signatures, they submit that to the Secretary of State's office. That's the signatures are verified, and then the Secretary of State, working with proponents and opponents of the policy proposal, develop pros and cons. They derive a description of effect that accurately describes everything that the proposed change to the Constitution would include. And then there's a public debate that occurs prior to an election. And so at this stage, we're not so concerned, or we shouldn't be so concerned about that debate, because right now we're just gathering signatures. But once it gets on the ballot, that's when a robust debate, and at least the way our constitutional and statutory scheme is set up for initiative and referendum, that's when the big policy debate occurs, and that's when the pros and cons of amending the Constitution for this sort of policy really need to be full-throated and vigorous.
All right. What's the status of your signatures? Are you getting them?
We're getting them. With the judge below enjoined us from gathering any more signatures, so we had to put a pause. And if we get the relief we're asking for this week, it's going to be a yeoman's effort to get there. But we've got volunteers from one end of the state to the other who are ready to be deployed. And as long as we get a chance, that'll be sufficient. And if we fall a little bit short, the beauty about the initiative referendum process is that we have the opportunity to bring it back next time.
That's fair enough. And we're going to bring it back next time, too. Thank you, Jason, so much for being on the show. It's a great discussion. I really appreciate it. Yeah. And we'll be right back on Nevada Newsmakers.
Ahern Rentals began as Signal Gas Station on Las Vegas Boulevard. Founder John Ahern grew the business by offering rentals. His son Don built on John's legacy, growing Ahern Rentals into the largest independently owned American rental company, with 89 locations in 30 states. Don also brought his experience and vision to equipment manufacturing with Extreme Manufacturing and Snorkel. Today, Ahern Rentals continues to bring its family values to a new generation. Learn more at ahern.com.
With Nevada's only transplant center and verified burn center, the science is here. With award-winning cardiologist and the state's only dedicated heart failure clinic, the talent is here. With Nevada's most advanced robotic surgery, the technology is here. And with the Silver State's only designated pediatric trauma center, hope is here. All because we are here. UMC.
What do you count on? You count on your power every day. At NV Energy, we've always powered what's important to you. But we're not looking at the past. We're focused on the future. While our standards are high, our rates will remain low. And our commitment to renewables isn't just meeting standards, but leading the way. Because you can count on more than just your power. You can count on the company who brings it to you. That's our promise. You can count on it.
Hi, I'm Renee Summerhour, digital news anchor here at 7 at 7. Watch our streaming nonstop newscast immediately with your mobile phone. 7 at 7 is the new way for you to get every bit of local news you need in just 7 minutes. Breaking news, local neighborhood news, weather, and sports are just a click away. Reporters bring you all of what's happening in the Valley. From Roku, Amazon Fire, Apple TV, YouTube, and more. Get every bit of local news you need from the RJ and LVRJ.com.
Thank you for watching Nevada Newsmakers. This has been Orrin Johnson filling in for Sam Shad. We'll see you in the next broadcast.